Now, questions. Could I ask the three speakers to come up while you're trying to get your questions ready? One other point that was common to everybody was content, which is quite good, given that we're supposed to be a nation of storytellers. But it does mean that everybody in the organization has a duty nowadays to be creative and innovative as well. It's not just what used to be in the old days, the old creative department. Everyone in a digital world needs to train themselves into having a creative mode. Now, is there anyone I'm having difficulty seeing here? Put your hands up, please. There. Thanks, Dave. This is for a question.
Hi, Daniel with Camille Pie. I just had a quick question for, is it Aisling?
Yeah.
Just you had the figures at the beginning there for the media mix, and you said it was estimated figures, correct?
Yes.
Just wondering vaguely where they came from.
From the core media group, which Radical is part of.
Okay.
So we represent about 25% of the market share. So it's based on the data that we have from our own clients,
Okay.
and then projecting that out to the wider landscape.
Cool.
Anyone else? Can you see everybody, David? Because it's hard here. Yeah. Again.
Hi there, Tracy Flinter from Alltech. My question is for Largo Foods. So how are your other brands adapting to changing business models of social media platforms? So not just Tato, the likes of other brands that you have.
Thanks for the question. I think it's really put it up to us, the fact that we have a whole range of brands within our portfolio. Not all of them are big performers like Tato. And in fact, since we've integrated the KP portfolio with our brands, we're dealing with quite a selection of brands that wouldn't have the same brand shout. But we're doing digital activation for those brands too. A good example would be Velvet Crunch. Another example is the Palm Bear brand. And we are treating those brands as if you would treat a very small developing brand in the Irish marketplace, because that's exactly what they are. They don't command the same spend as the Tato brand or Hunky Dory's or King. They don't justify it because they're far too small. But what we're doing is utilising the digital environment to give them a little bit of brand fame. And we've seen this work very effectively for us. So we can seed out a notification of events that we're involved in. For example, Velvet Crunch was at the mini marathon. We had a little stand there. We were inviting people to sample the product. We also sponsored a Unislim event, trying to tap into that better view proposition and the consumer who would be looking at those types of products. And that served us well. Twitter engagements, while very low, started to grow on foot of the activity that we were doing with those partnerships. So it's really, I suppose, looking at what can be achieved with the size of a brand such as Tato and tailoring the activity to suit the message that we want to communicate to our consumer. And that's ultimately driven by the brand strategy. Who do we want to talk to? How do we speak to them? And what are the platforms that we're going to utilise to deliver our message to them?
Thanks, Selena. Any other questions? Yeah.
My question is for Aisling. I was just wondering, we would be users of like Snapchat and we love the short-term content and the fact that it's always constantly updated. But I was just wondering, are Irish brands going to be embracing Snapchat like in the form of the way like, international brands are? For example, on stories and on Discover and Interact and their engagement. Is it Snapchat? Do you see anything coming through from Irish brands?
Not really, and I'm speaking, I suppose, of the brands that we work with, and not that many of them use Snapchat. I think they're still a little bit afraid of it because it has certain connotations, because of that younger audience, and it is unknown, as you say. So they don't seem to kind of delve too deeply into using Snapchat. How do you use it? Because it would be great to, share that.
From our company perspective, we don't use it.
Okay.
B2B, that would be all of us to do. But from a personal point of view, like I would use Discover to consume my media, to consume my news. I would
Yeah.
also use it as a, from a one-to-one basis. I engage with brands on Snapchat, like quite often. I suppose I'm in that group. Just in the point that you were making earlier, that it's a very crowded space at the moment and people are being over-targeted. Would it not make sense for Irish brands to embrace a medium that isn't over-populated at the moment?
Absolutely, but they have to have the right content to be in that space, because it's probably maybe a bit more of a cynical audience, and if it's very seen as a brand that's not authentic or doesn't understand the audience that are in that environment, then it could be very difficult and they might be rejected very quickly. I suppose Tayto is one of those brands that had a right to be there because it's such an iconic brand with that younger target audience, but not every brand has the opportunity, I suppose, to be able to live in that space because they're just not able to speak that language and be useful or engaging in that environment. So like the brands that we work tend to be quite cautious that they won't enter the space unless they're confident that they have something significant or relevant to say.
But even like, say, for example, the Nest with a recipe every day or an update of what's going on in the kitchen would be an interesting Snapchat story.
Yeah, that's true.
I think one of the points for smaller brands, well, first of all, there's the idea of tailoring it for your audience. And I certainly think with our new products that Snapchat is a relevant platform for us. But I would encourage our team and encourage particularly smaller brands to kind of do the platforms that you're doing well before you just suddenly embark on a new platform. I think it's a really, really important thing to do because there's nothing worse than having a page up that's not being fed and that's not being managed. So I think you're right, you need to sort of approach it with a certain amount of confidence that it's the right fit, but also that you can populate the content.
I saw that Mr. Taylor was on Tinder, was he? During their campaign?
No.
I saw Tinder.
If he was on Tinder, we didn't put him there. Oh, sorry, no, that was part of consideration, but no, we wouldn't have. No, not yet. No.
Well, would you have swiped or would you have?
Yeah, another question here, David.
Hi, I'm just wondering, just a question to Glenys and Largo Foods, how you went about finding your brand's tone of voice, because obviously it's very different for a tone of voice on a TV ad versus a print ad versus social media, because essentially on social media you're kind of speaking as a person. So how did you guys go about that? Was that kind of an organisation effort, or was it, I suppose, how did you do it really?
Do you want to give the grown-ups answer, Alina, then I'll tell you how Glenys do it.
Well, I suppose it came about because we would have brand guidelines in relation to how the brands behave and their characteristics. So when we look to our brand guidelines, we know the personality of Mr. Tayto. We set out a certain tone that we have to adhere to in all of our comms. And then we relate that to all of the stakeholders in delivery of the message, be it through Facebook or Twitter. And the core, I suppose, facets to the personality of Tayto and his character is it has to be fun, because you're not going to engage an audience unless you're relating something fun and exciting and novel to them. But he also has to be quite mainstream, because we have the younger cohort and then the older cohort, the mums who are buying for that take-home consumption occasion, and we don't want to alienate them. So there's two audiences, but the core message is it's fun, it's engaging, and it's Irish, because that's our USP, and that's differentiating us from all of our competitors. And we have done a Gaeilge pack in the past, and are considering doing another one in the future, and it's really leveraging the Irishness and talking to the consumer in a way that only Tayto can. So that informs everything that we do and all of the tone that is adopted right through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and so on, and not yet Tinder. And probably never Tinder, if truth be told.
So for us, I think it probably comes from the owners of the business. So there is that sort of culture that's within the organisation, and there is that sort of mercurial and entrepreneurial approach. So there's also a very inquisitive approach, and that's kind of that comes from the top down. So Glenisca is always about being on a journey. It's not a brand that's complete. We couldn't present a complete digital marketing strategy tonight because we're finding our feet, and I think that's conveyed in the tone of voice. So those of us who work in the marketing department get that. And interestingly enough, Alina was talking about brand guidelines. When we went back subsequently and started to develop brand guidelines and get a little bit more professional, and we did all that Jungian archetyping we discovered the brand personality was very in keeping with the owners of the business. So it was that explorer or maverick, you know, sat somewhere between the two. And it's just, I think it's something that's just absorbed. Our marketing team, we literally sit on top of each other, and everybody's using Twitter and Facebook and the other platforms on behalf of the company is working very closely together. So it's a pretty connected tone, a consistent tone, I should say.
Any more questions?
I suppose just a question to both Largo and Glynis is how do you deal with the internet trolls, as they're called, in terms of the negative media? Do you have action plans in place when they do put out a statement against your brand?
Do you want
Yeah,
to go
well, I
first?
was just going to say, I could say, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that I've removed a post from any of our social channels. We don't do it unless there's something defamatory or completely obscene. We're not going to remove, so we don't remove any criticism. What we do is get in there and address it. You know, the marriage referendum, we would have had some kind of pretty unpleasant posts put up. We were very careful not to remove, you know, a lot of people talking about unnatural yogurt and, you know, people have strong feelings and that's fine. So we were quite happy for them. And what often happens in that case is if somebody posts in that context in a really negative way, our other followers will come in and make their views known. So you don't necessarily have to come in like a nanny and delete it. I think we would, you know, really keep watch on it and respond to it, but not feed it and certainly not start trying to censor it.
Alina, have you
Yeah.
got anything?
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's a bit of a non-issue with us. We have rarely had negative commentary, and where it has occurred, what we've done is to contact the person offline. So, you know, sending a message to them, asking them to get in touch with us if there's a particular complaint that they have in relation to an experience that they had, either with our products or with an initiative. And then we try to deal with it through that medium, a private medium. And then we would follow up and consider whether we take down the post if it is something that's going to do damage to our brand in the long term. But if it's a statement of opinion, I mean, we leave it there. That's what you're opening yourself up for when you're engaging in digital. And you need to be able to take the good with the bad. So that's pretty much our approach to it.
What would Radical advise clients? I know all clients are different, but have you any general advice actually on that issue?
Exactly what Emma and Alina said.
Yeah.
We very rarely suggest that posts are taken down unless they are defamatory or, you know, there's very bad language or anything like that. And you do find communities are connected with brands because they want to hear from the brand, and so they then actually self-moderate. So if an internet troll does come on and start slagging off a brand, for example, the community jumps in and actually starts to try and reason with the person, or they nearly do the work for the brand. So very rarely do you actually need to take down a post. But then also, yes, in some cases we would try and ask them to remove the conversation and speak to us privately. So ask for them to direct message or, you know, give contact in private. So exactly as
Yeah, I think there's
said.
some arguments you're not going to win. So to try and get into a back and forth publicly is really, you know, it's foolish. So you do try to take it offline as quick as possible.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
I brought my own microphone.
Oh,
I missed some of the initial presentations, apologies. The BSE results were announced, so I had to just return to the office. But just Roz from Board BIA and just in relation to...
sorry, Roseanne, the PR and for me.
Yeah.
Multi-shop music.
Just in relation to measurement, and I'm not sure if you covered it yourself on the Radical side, but we are active on a lot of the social media platforms, but I suppose it's trying to in a busy press office decide, right, okay, well, what do you put your effort, your time, and while you all make it look very easy, those who's working it know it does take time to get right. It takes time to engage with people, get the tone right, and whether it be infographics or videos, it takes budget. So just in terms of measurements and or even relaying to the powers that be, the power of social media, is there particular tools or ways that you found are particularly beneficial or work well?
Aisling, I suspect that might be your
Yes,
direction.
well,
is it?
there's, you know, there are lots out there, and there's so many different measurement points, and they're all indicators to an overall return on investment. So, you know, some of the ones that we would use are the likes of engagement rate and the number of video views, and actually nearly more importantly, the retention of those video views. So, you know, you might have one video view and they watched it for 1 second, but how many people actually how much attention did you retain throughout that video? Did they watch it 100% the way through? If they did, that's a clear indicator of wanting to, you know, connect with your brand and engage with your brand. So we find that a really good, you know, way to measure. There are loads of different ways then you can measure social in terms of footfall, you know, so providing coupons, for example, and then, you know, measuring them in store. And then you can go the whole hog and do econometric modelling to see, you know, what paid, owned and earned media then actually did for your overall business, and how they all work together to provide a return on investment. And in a way, it then can be difficult because there are so many points that you could measure as indicators. So we'd usually say to clients, you know, take 3 or 4 key measures that you focus on, and then they are indicators for you as to whether or not what you're doing in social is successful or not.
Anyone else? While you're thinking of a question, I just have one question for Emma. Both of the other speakers said don't forget traditional media. What's your position on that?
Well, my position is if I had enough money, I'd be on TV in the morning. I'm not opposed to traditional media at all. It's interesting what Roz was saying as well about kind of quantifying social media. Because we're not doing traditional media, actually it's a lot easier for us. So we don't have the same challenges of trying to figure out where the return is coming from. I think it's hugely important, particularly for the range that we have, you know, to build awareness up in a very short space of time, particularly in the current retail environment where you know that you've launched something new and Tesco's going to be looking at it in 4 weeks and looking at it at 8 weeks and looking at it at 12 weeks and thinking about their future planograms, and you want to show results really, really quickly. So, you know, there's nothing to beat the traditional media in terms of building that awareness really fast. And there's no doubt that viewing habits have changed, as Ashley made it very clear, but it's still hard to beat that reach. So I don't knock it at all. I see it as part of the mix, but I certainly see that even if my resources were unlimited, I think I would still be putting a huge priority into digital, even if I could go on any platform.
Yeah, from everyone. Anything else? Yep, question?
No, I don't need microphone. Everybody's talking about teams. Just wondering what's the size of teams when you're a small business and you're doing everything, so, you know.
Emma, that's for you.
Yeah, well, I hear you because I was the entire marketing team for Glenisk, and I have plenty of other stuff on my plate as well as marketing. So I know what that's like, and we've been fortunate enough that our team has grown. And I don't want this to sound like a really pat answer. So the short answer is that there's 3 full-time in marketing, and 2 others who are kind of with us on a part-time basis or a contract basis. So one of the reasons that we've grown, and we've really had phenomenal growth in the last few years, like a tripling of market share and revenue more than doubling, has been down to the focus that we've put on digital and field marketing, I have to say, and that has enabled us to grow our teams. So, you know, your team might start out small, you're spread very thin, it's very challenging, it's very difficult. You focus on, even if it's one platform, focus on that to get started, and then, you know, hopefully the cash starts rolling in and you can grow the teams. Sorry if that sounds like a pat answer, but that's kind of how it's gone for us.
Any other questions? Just another question. There was somebody asked me a question, or asked me to mention something earlier, and it's the correlationship of B2B marketing on digital. Because a lot of people are selling in, even fast-moving consumer goods companies are selling into businesses as well. I'll start with you on that one, if you have any comments, Aisling, for the whole digital in relation to business marketing.
Digital is actually a wonderful way to target a B2B audience. You know, the challenge in the traditional world targeting B2B customers is that there's a lot of wastage because they are kind of everyday consumers as well. Whereas in digital, you have the power of being able to target very specific people that you know are in the business that you want to target. So, you know, a very clear example is LinkedIn, where you can, you know, actually speak to people based on their level in the organisation, the industry that they work in, and the number of employees maybe they have on their team. So it's very, very targeted. And in that way cost effective, because you're actually minimising, you know, any wasted media or advertising by advertising in a traditional environment.
Thanks. Anyone else like to comment? Probably not relevant, is it really? Yeah.
Really not hugely.
But I mean, obviously the business audience are more receptive to the messages because it is part of their business. So
exactly, and one of the first ports of call for the business audience is search, for example, and being able then to provide content that again answers the questions that they are searching for is a great way to target a business audience.
Okay, I think I'd like to thank our speakers again. There's a huge amount of content there. Content has been a theme tonight, but there's certainly a huge amount of information in the presentations, and we'll be doing a summary of the presentations on the Brand Forum website. So I'd like to give them a round of applause again. They've put huge work.